We are live now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dylan. I want to. Okay, everybody, welcome this evening to Northwest Indiana Green Drinks. And I always have to say this is our 11th year. So congratulations to our sponsors who are Northwest Indiana Green Drinks. Is everybody muted? Okay, looks like we are. I'm sorry. Congratulations to Northwest Indiana Green Drinks and Save the Dunes who co-sponsor these events. And also a big hearty thanks to 219 Green Connect, which provides us with all of our platforms in social media and also MailChimp so we can notify people of our upcoming events. And we also remind them on the day of the event. A lot of people sometimes forget. So thank you, Kathy Sipple, of that. Also, our guest hosts this month are 95.1 FM, 1420 AM, WIMS radio. And Rick Federici was so gracious. He allowed me to call in this morning. So we were able to talk about tonight and various environmental things that are happening in the community. I also want to recognize Sierra Club Hoosiers chapter as one of our guest hosts, and then finally Duneland's Sierra Club as a guest host also. So without all of these partners, we wouldn't be able to do this. So, heartfelt thanks to all of these organizations who make this possible. I like to jump into our presentation right away, but we do have some housekeeping things to take care of. So I'm going to hand it over to Dylan of Save the Dunes, and she is on staff. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, Nancy. Good evening, everyone. Just so that you know, this is being recorded and it will live on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube. Questions can be dropped into the Zoom chat or into the Facebook comments, and everyone is currently muted. If there is time at the end, you'll be allowed to unmute yourselves and ask questions. And I think that covers it, Nancy. Am I good?
You're good until we get to the announcement section at the end.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
And if we've dropped the ball anywhere, then I know you'll take care of us, Dylan. Thank you so very much. Let me see. I should say Dylan too is the engagement coordinator for Save the Dunes. So besides Green Drinks, you'll see her out and about the community in many diverse communities. So Dylan, thank you for that ongoing work you do. I also want to give a shout out to Harshini, and she is the advocacy coordinator for Save the Dunes, and she's on staff too. So Harshini, do you want to wave to everybody? Okay, thank you for being with us. Greatly appreciated. So tonight I'm so excited and I feel very fortunate that Amanda Shepard comes, we'll just say annually now, to coordinate this session for us. Tonight it's entitled Path to Advocacy in the Indiana Legislature. And my friendship with Amanda goes back to days when she was with the Hoosier Environmental Council. And I actually had this crazy idea of doing an Advocacy 101 course at Save the Dunes. And she came up to be with us for an afternoon. And that really activated engagement with the Indiana legislature for residents of Indiana and the surrounding area. And I don't know if she ever completely understood the fire of enthusiasm and commitment that she ignited under people just by that one session. But Amanda, I really want to acknowledge you for that. So Amanda's going to tell you what she wants you to know about her, and then we'll jump into the presentation, and we've allotted enough time for questions and answers. And as Dylan said, we'll take questions in the chat here first, then we'll take questions from the comment section on Facebook Live. So Amanda, it's all yours. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. And hello, everyone. I wish I could see more faces, but I understand this is the wonder of Zoom now, right? You get to join and you don't have to be like presentable. So
But
thank you so much for
we love seeing everybody's faces. And just a reminder, if you're not on mute, please do that for sound quality and also internet stability. I'm noticing some people that aren't muted. Thank you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, no problem. And I will say, speaking of audio, if you weren't on already, I am in a hotel lobby. So if there is background noise, my apologies in advance. My room internet was not working. So I am actually coming to you from Seattle tonight. So thank you all so much. I am Amanda, obviously, and I've been working in the environmental nonprofit sector in Indiana for about a decade now. As Nancy said, I worked with the Hoosier Environmental Council for several years, and I've now been with the Sierra Club Hoosier chapter for almost 2 years, coming up this spring. And it's really just my pleasure to get to talk to people all across the state and hopefully motivate them. Nancy, your words are so kind always. You're so sweet. I like to think that I have that kind of impact. So I'm really, really excited that hopefully my passion rubs off on other people. So without further ado, I will jump in and share my screen. I will try and go as quickly as possible because there are a lot of bills that we are following in the legislature, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions. And if I don't have answers, I will try and find someone who does. And I can also provide the slides after we're done if that's helpful. So Nancy, I could send those to you and you could then share those with other people. Great. All right, so let me pull this up. All right, and I will say if things show up in the chat, if somebody can just let me know if there are questions that I need to address right away, I might not see them necessarily very quickly. So flag that for me if you would, please. So yes, I am going to give you all an update on what is happening in the legislature and let you know how to take action. So first, I'm going to give you just a brief intro to the Sierra Club. Most of you are probably familiar with us, but just in case you're not, I wanted to give just kind of a basic, what exactly do we do kind of overview of that. Then I'm going to give you an overview of the legislative process. Again, many of you may already know this, but if there are people who don't, it's always really important to make sure people understand how a bill moves through the legislature. And then I'll talk about the Hoosier chapter's legislative priorities, what bills we're focusing on, what we're supporting, what we're opposing, and how you can take action. And then if there's a little time at the end, I can give some tips and tricks on how to be better advocates. So Sierra Club is a grassroots organization. It is national, and it has been around for over 120 years. And we say our mission is to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. That encompasses a broad number of issues that we work on. Most people, when they think about Sierra Club, they think about conservation, think about specifically environmental issues, but more and more we are becoming an intersectional organization, and we really focus not just on the environment, but the human component of that as well, whether it's looking at racial justice issues, reproductive health, all the things that we need in order to survive and be able to advocate for the planet that we all love so much. The Hoosier chapter of the Sierra Club was formed in 1975, and we have over 10,000 members in Indiana currently. So at the local level, we have groups. So Nancy mentioned the Dunelands group. So that's up in Northwest Indiana, where I assume most of you are. So we have groups like that across the state. We have about a half dozen of those. We're hoping to grow that. We're actually hiring a full-time outreach coordinator right now. We'll be only the second full-time staff at the chapter. So that's very exciting. We're almost doubling our capacity. And so hopefully you'll see us out and about even more. So our volunteer leaders are really the heart and soul of the Sierra Club. We are a mission-driven, volunteer-driven organization, very much committed to making sure our volunteers have a voice and are the largest part of the work that we do. And then at the state level, we have professional staff, so actual paid staff. And then we have volunteers who work for the Hoosier chapter doing work across the state that is relevant to all areas. And again, an active base of members and supporters. And then we are a nationwide organization. So federally, we have the Beyond Coal campaign that has an Indiana presence. There are lots of other campaigns that occur across the country. Even if we don't have organizers necessarily in Indiana working on those campaigns, we are engaging with them and trying to help spread messages and making sure that we are part of that work that happens all across the country as well. All right, so a little bit about how a bill becomes a law. And again, some of you, if not all of you, already probably understand this, but it doesn't hurt to refresh it. So we are in the Indiana General Assembly right now, and session started 3 weeks ago, I guess, at this point. And so bills have already been moving. But the way that that starts is when a bill is introduced in either the House or the Senate, it is introduced for a first reading, and at that point, it is assigned to a committee. I always try to pinpoint where people should be taking action, and this is the first place where I'm like, it is vital for people to take action. Once a bill has been assigned to committee, we want people reaching out to the committee chair, asking them to hear the bill if we like the bill, or to not hear the bill if we don't like the bill, and then also reaching out to committee members if their particular legislator sits on that committee. So this is a really good place to start advocating. After that, the committee chair decides whether or not that bill is going to get heard. Again, this is why we're telling people to reach out. And you also have the opportunity to testify when a bill is in committee. So if a bill has been assigned to a committee and is scheduled for a hearing, the public is free to come in and sign up to testify on that bill. If you ever see a bill that is moving through the legislature and you are moved to come to Indianapolis and speak on it, feel free to reach out to us or to another environmental partner that is working on that bill, because they and we would be happy to provide talking points and to help you set up your travel there. And also maybe if you want to meet with your legislator while you're there, we can always help you make that happen. So I just wanted to also make sure that you all know that. In committee, the bill will get voted on. If the bill is passed, then it will go to that full House or full Senate, wherever it originated, for a second reading. When it is in committee, we also encourage people to contact their legislators only if they sit on that committee. So the committee chair, you may recall, I said we try and get everybody across the state to contact the chair, because the chair kind of is in that position where they're representing the full state because of their position as chair. It is not necessary to contact every committee member, because they are only really going to care about what their specific constituents have to say. I'm not saying it makes no difference to contact every committee member, but it probably is not necessarily worth your time. What you should really be doing is think about people you know who live in that committee member's district and encouraging them to get a hold of them. Okay, so back to, if the bill is passed through committee, it goes to the full chamber, whether that's the House or the Senate, and it goes through a second reading. Amendments can happen at this point. So if the bill is amended, then it will actually then go through whether it's amended or not, it will go up for a vote. At this point, when we know a bill is coming up for second and third reading, we are telling everyone across the state, contact your legislator, because they are going to be voting on this bill, because it's on the full floor, right? So whether it's the House, we're telling people contact their reps. If it's the Senate, we're telling people contact your senators and tell them support the bill if we like it, or oppose the bill if we don't like it. If it passes on third reading, it's a simple majority, then it will move over to the other chamber and it will go through the whole process again. Now, amendments can happen throughout this process, and we could get into a lot of detail about what that might look like, and I can answer questions about that to the best of my ability later if you all want to know more about that. But essentially, that's the path, right? A bill is introduced, it gets assigned to a committee. If it gets heard in committee, then the committee will vote on it, and then it moves to the full chamber. Now, if the bill doesn't pass out of committee, it is technically dead. Although sometimes bills can kind of come back as like amendments to other bills. It could also be split into something else that's like a vehicle bill. So we do always have to watch it, especially like if it's a bill that we were working against. Even if it's dead, we're still watching for that language to show up elsewhere. So we never rest. We're always watching. So once it goes to that second chamber, it goes through the same process again. It's going to get assigned to a committee. We're going to tell people to contact that committee chair. Then we're going to tell people to contact committee members if they are represented by them, and so on and so forth. And then it returns to the Chamber of Origin after third reading if it has been amended. So if it was a House bill and it moved through and got to the Senate, and then if it's amended in the Senate in any way, if it passes through the Senate, it actually has to go back into what we call conference committee and make sure that the House is okay with what the Senate amended the bill to then say. If it is, then it will approve it, and then it is sent to the governor to sign into law. Clear as mud, right? There's lots of processes here, and we actually have a whole handout that I can also provide you, Nancy, if you're interested, if people would like to have that, the kind of walk through this process too. All right. If you've not been on the Indiana General Assembly's website, particularly its new one, this is its new beta site. So if you go to iga.in.gov, you can actually have this, there's a little banner at the top that says, we have a new beta site that you can check out. And so that's this here. It's beta.iga.in.gov. And it looks like this. I like it so much better than the old site. So just a little plug for that. And so lots of great things are here. You can find all kinds of information. If you click on like information up here, it will take you to how to find your legislators. You can look at committees and see what committees are there. You can click on legislation and you can type in like a topic and it will pull up any legislation related to that topic. So really, really interactive and so much slicker than the old website, in my opinion. So yes, if you go to the IGA website now and you can click on that legislation tab right there. Oh, I'm missing a slide here, but anyway, that will take you to a search bar and you can actually go through, but it also has a list of all the bills. So if you really just wanted to look through every bill, you can, but it's much easier to just search for what you're looking for. You'll also see here on the right, every day you can actually see what committees are meeting. And if you click on these cameras, you can actually watch the committee while it's happening live. Now you can't interact with them, it's just streaming, but it is nice to be able to watch that since you necessarily may not be able to be in the State House at that time. I use this a lot. If I have other obligations, I can't be in a committee, if I'm not at the State House that day, then you can just watch on there, see what people are saying. Also, the videos are archived so you can watch them later. And in fact, the other day, Matt Pierce made an impassioned speech on the floor of the House that Shannon Anderson and I from Earth Charter Indiana have been talking about changing into a TikTok because it was so good. All right, so now we're going to dive into what the Hoosier chapter's legislative priorities are this session. A few reminders, 2023 is a budget session. So this is a really important time for us to try and influence what is being funded at the state level. So this is a biennial budget, so it's spending for the next 2 years. There is lots of money on the table from both the IIJA and the Inflation Reduction Act. And there are specific earmarks in there for environmental priorities and Justice 40 initiative, which is an environmental justice push from the federal level. So there's lots and lots that is happening this session. It is a long session, so that means it runs through April. And in fact, you can see here, April 29th is technically the last day that both chambers have to be adjourned by. So it's possible we'll be done before then, but we are in session for longer than our short, like 2.5 to 3 months that we had last year. I just wanted to give you all an idea of the bills, the number of bills, the sheer number of bills that are filed that are environmental in nature. So these are maybe not even quite all of the environmental bills that were assigned in the House. I'm not going to read through them all. I don't expect you to. It's just interesting to see the number of things that are popping up. So these are all of the House environmental bills. And these are all of the Senate assigned environmental bills. So you can imagine we have to pick and choose what we work on. So again, there are lots of things on here that we could work on and that we do think are important, but we have to decide where can we have impact and what is most important. So that's always a balancing act. So first off, for chapter priorities, of course, again, state budget. I have another slide here in a little bit, and I'll talk more about the state budget then. I just wanted to throw that out there. That is probably our top priority this session, and I'll explain why here in just a little bit. But there are lots of other bills that are actually really great, and we're really hoping that they move through the legislature. So some of you are probably well aware that there is a climate solution, there are two climate solutions task force bills. These were drafted by incredible youth leaders. Confront the Climate Crisis has been working on trying to get legislation passed for the past 2 years. And both of these bills, SB 335 and HB 1453, I guess I should say this in case anyone doesn't know, SB means Senate bill, HB means House bill. Both of these would create a climate task force to basically review sustainability in Indiana and start looking towards solutions for clean energy and addressing the climate crisis. These have not been heard yet. We are hearing that it is very likely that Senate Bill 335 will get a hearing in the Senate Environmental Affairs Committee, probably February 13th. And we will be looking for people to submit written testimony because we hear they're not going to take a lot of oral testimony on that day. We want people to come still and like support it, like just by being there if they can, but written testimony will be really important. And we're going to submit that to the committee, encouraging them to pass that Senate Bill 335. Senator Niemeyer is the Senate Environmental Affairs Committee chair. So he has said he's going to hear it. So we're hopeful that that is true. And we've heard back and forth whether or not they'll take a vote. So the big thing is we want to encourage them to not only hear it, but to actually vote on it, because we want to get legislators on record as a yes or a no on creating a climate solutions task force. House Bill 1190 and Senate Bill 399. Most of you are probably super familiar with this because these are the coal ash bills. They would require that coal ash be disposed of in a landfill with certain requirements that we don't have right now and we desperately need. I won't go into that because again, I think you all probably are intimately familiar with the need for better disposal of coal ash. I know Just Transition Northwest Indiana is working diligently on this with Pat Boy and other legislators. So we're supporting this bill. We're encouraging it to be heard. It has not been assigned, it's been assigned to committee, but it has not been given a hearing yet. So continue to push those legislators to hear the bill and to pass it, hopefully. House Bill 1218, this actually would reduce the number of failing septic systems, which is actually a huge problem in Indiana. And all this bill would do is it would require an inspection before a property is sold. It would require that septic system to actually be inspected to make sure that it is in good shape before that property gets transferred to a new owner. And then Senate Bill 254, that is protections for utility customers, particularly like residential, not businesses. So this would remove utility deposit requirements for renters and reconnections, and it removes late fees and interest charges on past due amounts. So this is not just an environmental bill or an energy bill. This is also an energy burden environmental justice bill for people who have their power shut off, trying to prevent that from happening, and also from that racking up of late fees for people who are struggling to actually pay for their energy bills right now. All right, more bills to support. HB 1304 is actually kind of like an addition to the budget. So it would increase funds for the Department of Natural Resources LAIR program, which is Lake and River Enhancement Grants, by basically just transferring some of those renewal fees into the LAIR program and making it better protect those waters. And that has passed out of natural resources, which is great. But because it is a fiscal bill, so meaning it has something to do with money and the way that money is managed at the state, It then had to go to Ways and Means. So now we're encouraging people to reach out to the House Ways and Means Committee, encourage them to hear the bill and to pass it. HB 1138 and HB 1219, again, are both also kind of public health bills. So 1138 is testing of drinking water in preschool and childcare facilities for lead. And 1219 is PFAS monitoring, which would track exposures of firefighters to PFAS chemicals. And that one has actually passed out of its original committee and has been referred to Ways and Means as well, because it's got some fiscal issues to it too. 1138 has not been heard yet, so encouraging committee to hear the bill and pass it. And then 1193 is a greenhouse gas emissions inventory program. And this would just basically create a program to administer grants to municipalities to conduct greenhouse gas emissions inventories, which is really important in order to address carbon emissions at local places across the state. Finally, on this slide is Senate Bill 91. This has been introduced a number of times and never seems to go anywhere. It is a bill that would require annual inspections of CFOs, which are essentially confined feeding operations, so large animal feeding operations, which would improve oversight and regulation because a lot of those facilities contaminate water and the air around where they are. Right now, they only have to be inspected every 5 years, and this would change that to every year. So much needed. All right, so talking a little bit more about the budget. We are a part of the Indiana Conservation Alliance, and so we worked very closely with them and held a conservation day. And our purpose for that was to encourage legislators to support Governor Holcomb's proposed budget, because we actually think it's really good. It didn't give everything that we wanted, but it gave more than we anticipated. It is the largest ask for conservation funding at the state level that anyone on INCA has, well, any of us can remember, other than federal funds from last year. This is actually entirely state funds. So it is $25 million over 2 years for land conservation, $50 million over 2 years for trails, an increase of over $2 million for the Division of Forestry, an increase of over $7 million for Fish and Wildlife Management, $3 million for a new visitor center at Prophetstown State Park, and really importantly, salary increases for DNR staff, including conservation officers. This may not feel necessarily like an environmental thing, but it is so important because DNR and IDEM both have been vastly underfunded and understaffed for years and years. And part of that problem is they cannot get staff and they cannot keep staff because they are not paid well enough. So this will allow DNR to actually attract staff, hopefully, retain that staff, and actually do a better job of helping conserve these spaces that we all know and love so well. I already touched a little bit on House Bill 1304 for the DNR's LAIR program. So I'll kind of skip over that. Again, that would raise an additional $3.2 million a year. And then the additional ask we are making that is not in any bill right now is we really think Clean Water Indiana needs an additional $8 million a year. CWI provides funding and assistance for projects to control soil erosion, improve soil health, and a number of other issues which are super important. And there just isn't enough funding in the budget currently for that program to do everything it needs to be able to do. All right, and then bills to oppose. The first one is the one that has actually moved the furthest. So this is a bill that would interfere with efforts to reduce flood risk. So right now, there was a bill passed, I think last session, that required the DNR to use the best available map when they're trying to map out floodplains. And this has to do with construction and flood zones and things of that nature. The reason they've introduced this bill is because they're saying it's too restrictive. The new maps actually have too much land in the floodplains, which seems silly because why would you want to build in a floodplain anyway? But essentially what's happening is people's property values have gone down because now all of a sudden they're in a floodplain where they weren't before. And so it has hurt some individual families. We understand that that's an issue. But we don't think that that means that DNR shouldn't be using the best data available when deciding where to build. So we oppose the bill as it is. If it were amended to actually address some of these issues, then that's something we could think about. But right now we're opposing it. Unfortunately, it passed out of the Senate very quickly. Like it went through committee and it's already passed out of the floor. Like, and now it's onto the House. It has not been assigned to a committee in the House yet, but we will keep everyone posted through our social media and things, letting you know when it is. Two bills here. They haven't been assigned to committee yet, so or they've been assigned to committee, but they've not been assigned to be heard. So we're hoping that they just won't be. These are pretty specific to Indianapolis, but we are watching them because it would basically restrict the expansion of our public transportation system here in Indianapolis, specifically our rapid bus transit lines. If you've been to Indy at all, you probably know we have the red line. They're building the blue and the purple, and we're having this huge transit expansion. And there's just like one senator and representative who really just hate public transit, so they introduce this all the time, trying to stop it. So we're opposed to that right now. It's not being heard, so hopefully that stays that way. House Bill 1417, House Bill 1420, and House Bill 1421 are all energy bills. Beyond Coal is doing most of the work on these bills because they focus entirely on energy issues. So I let them take the lead on these because obviously we have our hands full with a lot of other things, but we are still watching these and supporting their efforts and trying to make sure people understand what's happening here. 1417 essentially just reduces public oversight of utility spending. So it would make it so that the IURC, which is the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, they would not have as much oversight. And so obviously that is bad. We want the IURC to continue to have oversight. So we're opposed to this. 1420 basically blocks competition for transmission projects. So it increases the chances of monopolies and things of that nature. So we're opposed to that. And then 1421 grants what we call QUIP, which essentially allows utilities to charge customers for power plants, even if they've never produced electricity and if they don't ever produce electricity. So you could get charged for the construction of a power plant, even if you never benefit from that power plant actually producing electricity. So it would grant QUIP for fossil gas plants. And we are vehemently opposed to it because oftentimes these gas plants fail. Honestly, I think QUIP should only happen if it's going to be something that you can always count on. And despite talking points, you can almost always count on solar and wind working at least some of the time, if not the vast majority of the time. So yes, we are opposed to that bill as well. All right, those are all the bills. So I want to take a breath here because I want to make sure we have plenty of time. Nancy, should I get into this or should we just start into questions? I don't even know how long I've been talking.
Let me see, we're at 7:10 right now, which means we have about 20 more minutes. So it's up to you, Amanda. Do you have more information to present? You could maybe go for 5 more minutes or so.
I can just do a really quick like run through here. So essentially all I was going to say.
And you can take up to 10 minutes actually. Okay.
Okay. I don't need that much time at all. I'm not even going to go through all of the slides I have left. I'm just going to put this screen up and say there are lots of ways to be an advocate, right? And
I think this is important to explain advocacy and how people can get involved, please.
Yes. Okay, great. So first and foremost is be in contact with your legislator in whatever way you can. There is a tier of what's most effective. So top tier is always, if you can actually meet with your legislator in person, that's the best. But I also understand it's not always easy to do, specifically during session if you don't live in Indianapolis. So if you can't meet with your legislator in person right now, that's okay, but put it in the back of your mind to meet with them in person at some point when they're back in their hometown and you can actually get together with them. Invite them out for coffee, get to know them. That's going to have more impact than probably anything else you can do, because once they know who you are, then they start to care about you as a human. Because believe it or not, they are all people too, and they have hearts and they actually do care about the people who live in their districts. Although sometimes it's hard to remember that. Um, Other than meeting in person, next down is making phone calls to your legislators about all of these issues that we've discussed. You probably won't actually speak on the phone directly with them when you first call. You'll talk to their LAs, get to know their LAs. These are hardworking, incredible people. LA is legislative assistant, by the way, if you don't know that. So make calls often. You know, as bills move, continue to call and let them know what you think at every step of the way. And then emails. I always advise people, whether you've met with someone in person or talked to them on the phone, follow up with an email regardless. If all you can do is email, that's better than nothing too. So send those emails, let them know what you are thinking, and it lets them know that you're paying attention, because they don't always know that people are watching what they're doing. Make sure you're sharing social media and forwarding emails from people and organizations that you follow that are providing good information, whether that's Save the Dunes, Northwest Indiana Green Drinks. Nancy is a super sharer. Like, I always love when I see that Nancy has shared my stuff, because I know it's going to go out to a ton of people. So I encourage everybody to do that as much as possible. If you are a writer and you want to do a letter to the editor about an issue you really care about, that's a great way to take action too. And if you need talking points on issues, if you don't feel comfortable, if you're not an expert, we don't expect you to be, reach out to us or any other org that is working, and I'm sure that they would be happy to help you with tips and editing resources and things of that nature. At events, pitch in when you can. If you want to volunteer for people, if you like engaging with people, reach out to organizations that you know do that kind of stuff and let them know you're willing to lend a hand. There are third house meetings with legislators in communities all across the state. Find out when third house meetings are happening in your community, attend them, ask questions of your legislators. Again, it's a good chance to get to know them. And then, even though I already said this, it's number 6 here, but it's in bold for a reason. Meeting with your legislator is so important. And if you can, come and testify at the State House. That is incredibly impactful as well, because not only then will you be able to testify to a committee, you can also meet with your legislator while you're there, and we can help you set that up. All right, we'll skip through this because this is just essentially like pictures of like all of the things I was just talking about, right? Coming to committee hearings, writing letters to the editor. Last thing I will say is, when you are talking with your legislator, make sure you introduce yourself, make sure they know who you are. Facts are great. Have 1 to 3 facts that you want to present that tells you and tells them why you're contacting them, why this issue impacts you and your community personally, and why you care so much about it. And then be very clear about what you're asking your legislator to do, whether you're asking them to support or oppose that piece of legislation. And always be sure to thank them for responding to you, taking time to talk to you, and keep that conversation going between you and them, because that's really important to keep that relationship going. What to avoid and what to include: obviously, don't burn any bridges, don't make any threats, don't assume that they're going to oppose you. Don't go in with kind of a what's it, like a porcupine attitude, right? Like where you already have like all of your pine needle, like all your needles out, right? Go in assuming the best, even if you're pretty sure that you're going to get the worst. And also make sure you're not speaking for others unless you have authority to do so. Again, why you care. Tell them if you live in their district, which hopefully you do, and thank them, and be very specific and firm with what you're asking of them. All right, that's it. So I will stop share and we can take questions and have discussion at this point.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you very much for going through those last slides, because we like to see where the rubber hits the road and how we can put our boots on and be on the pavement. So those last slides are extremely important. So thanks for doing those. Dylan, I'm going to hand this over to you for the Q&A period.
Awesome. So we have Sam Reed, who asked, are there any bills in the works for monitoring and or limiting PFAS contamination into Lake Michigan from our coastal refineries and steel mills? I have read that BP Whiting is one of the worst water polluters in this nation. Would this be more relevant at the federal level of legislation?
Yeah, so there is not any legislation that I have seen that addresses PFAS levels going into Lake Michigan. There is a lot happening when it comes to PFAS, especially in the Great Lakes area. Not anything Indiana specific that I have seen as far as policy work at the state level, but I know that it's something that's being talked about a lot. I know that IDEM is watching PFAS and are developing some standards. I have not heard anything about that in a while. It's been probably 6 to 8 months since I last heard from IDEM about that. So that's something that's on my notes to follow up with them. We have quarterly meetings with them. So hopefully I can get an answer and get back to you. But the answer to whether or not there's any legislation is no, as far as I know. The only PFAS that I've seen is that firefighter bill that I mentioned.
Okay. Also, I want to be careful with the alphabet soup. IDEM stands for Indiana Department of Environmental Management. For people that may be new to the jargon that's used down at the State House and in Indiana government.
Thanks, Nancy.
And then we have the lovely Katie Hobgood, our program director. She asked, what is a third house meeting?
Oh, yeah. So third house meetings are basically town halls with your legislators. So I don't know why they call them third house here, but they do. And yeah, so it's essentially just town hall meetings in a community. Usually there's multiple legislators at a third house meeting, just depending on where you are as to how many legislators there are, if any show up. But typically, like what I tend to see is like 2 to 5 legislators might attend a third house meeting together. And it's just a chance to get, for them to get out into their communities and not actually be at the State House and to address questions. Although sometimes they don't really like to take questions, they'll just come and kind of talk about legislation that they're working on. But it is a great place to be seen, to be heard by legislators and to kind of get their take on legislation that's moving through.
Okay, I am going to allow participants to unmute themselves now. And we can get your questions for a good, how many minutes you think, Nancy?
Probably 5 minutes would be good.
All righty. So whenever you're ready, you can unmute and ask Amanda your question.
And this is a great opportunity. As you can tell, Amanda is a wealth of knowledge. So don't be afraid, ask questions. Otherwise, we're going to go into the Amanda, Nancy, and Dylan show.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It is my personal crusade that I would really, really love to get net metering or something for solar energy back into the state of Indiana after it was just squashed. What would we have to do to make my dream come true?
There are efforts happening always to try and get that to happen. You know, there are so many organizations working on energy issues in Indiana alone. And bills have been introduced over the last few years, honestly, and they just never get a hearing that would essentially do exactly that. So what we need to do is we need to get Republicans on board. I mean, I'm not trying to be partisan, but that is essentially, that is the stopping point. We have Democrats who introduced the legislation. I think last year it was JD Ford. I don't think one was introduced this year because they probably decided, they were tired of wasting their time. Essentially, if you don't already know this, if you want a bill to be heard and have any chance of doing anything in the Indiana legislature, you at least have to have a Republican as a co-author. And so we need a Republican co-author on a bill that would bring back net metering. That would be a start. But other than that, it is just continually pushing. And I always tell people not to give up. One of the big things that we're looking to do in the next year or two for Sierra Club alone is you have to think like a dozen steps ahead always, right? And so we're also trying to start back up our PAC so that we can start working to get candidates that will actually take over and be able to work on these issues and be people that will actually be open to that, because it is so important to have adequate representation in the State House too. I know you all know that, but it's something I just want to make sure you all know that we know too, right? Is that not only are we working to affect policy, we're also working to affect the body of the legislature as it currently is, because it's obviously not working for the people.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. It looks like a question popped up from Doreen Carey in the chat box. Dylan, could you pick that one up for us, please?
Absolutely. Doreen says, I am concerned about SB 472 because Indiana legislator seems to be promoting unproven chemical advanced recycling facilities. This bill has already passed through the Senate Environmental Committee. Do I write to Niemeyer, my legislators, or both?
So this bill is actually one that I've just started digging into because it was not one that popped up as like a priority bill for us right away, but I'm starting to hear about it. And I think, Doreen, you may have emailed me about this and I just haven't had a chance to get back to it yet. Or I've gotten like 5 emails about this bill. Since it is already passed out of committee, we need everybody to write to their specific legislator. So it has moved out of committee. It is now going to, well, it's already on the Senate floor. It looks like it was amended. So I need to read what happened in that amendment. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet because that was actually just today. So I'm not sure what the amendment was. So I can make sure to follow up on that. But I would encourage all of you, actually, let me pop that here. This is what's really great about the General Assembly's website. You can actually click on that link right there, and it tells you all of the actions that have happened on Senate Bill 472. And you can actually click on amendment number 1, and you can actually read what the amendment is. But yes, the move is that everyone needs to be contacting their senator and asking them to oppose that bill. As far as I know, again, I haven't done a lot of research into this one yet, but what I'm hearing is it is very concerning. And I definitely have concerns about anytime they want to reduce regulations on anything, it's concerning, honestly. Like if it's a reduction in regulation, it's probably bad.
Doreen, would you like to add anything to that? Because I know you follow issues about chemicals like this very closely.
Yes, please do.
Well, I'm just concerned for some reason I can't get my camera to turn on, but yeah, we have a facility that wants to be located on our Lake Michigan shoreline that will be turning municipal garbage supposedly into aviation fuel, and that's unproven. There's a facility in Ashley, Arizona, Ashley, Indiana, which is a plastic recycling facility. And they say they're going to make various usable products, and that they're green for this reason because they're using waste materials, but really they use a lot of energy. The plants that have existed in the past in various places around the country have failed, and a lot of government money is actually being used, including in the state of Indiana, to support these facilities, because what a great idea it would be, like to spin straw into gold or to make aviation fuel out of garbage, but it's unproven, and we are opposed to any support that will be given to these facilities until there's better proof and that they really show that through some mechanism, which is not just waving around assertions, that these are really green and that they really are effective and commercially viable.
Thank you, Doreen. That was an excellent summary. I also want to add to that there is a Marquette plan for Northwest Indiana, which clearly states anytime an industry or manufacturing facility would be to abandon their properties that are close to Lake Michigan shoreline, that those are to be repurposed as a recreational facility for the residents of that community. So that's another thing to keep an eye on and be concerned about. I know that this used to be a cement factory. So, you know, if we're looking at the overall plan that's been put together for NERPS by NERPC, the Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, then this shouldn't even be part of the conversation if we're looking at what should be happening in the region. Okay, we're at our time as far as questions now. I do want to quickly go through announcements that we have. Dylan, if you could take the one for Save the Dunes, I believe we have an event coming up on February 18th, and then I'll fill in with the couple that I have, okay?
Okay. Apologies to anyone that we missed as far as questions go. Save the Dunes will be hosting a forest bathing event on February 18th at Barker Woods, which is 444 Barker Road. Parking will be available at Barker Middle School, and I think there'll also be overflow parking at Barker Middle School. So it's going to be a very low-key event, just walking and an optional meditation. The trail is about 10-15 minutes long when you're at regular walking speed, but we might slow it down a bit, so maybe 20-30. And that's going to be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on February 18th. So hope to see some of you there, maybe.
And
Thanks.
I saw registration was required, and you can do that on Facebook and or the Save the Dunes website. So yeah, this is really a Japanese thing. So you know, consider having another cultural experience too from a country in Asia. So please join for that. I wanted to make an announcement. I just became aware of this today. So there's going to be a Save Our Water Indiana Legislative Action Meeting. And this is going to be on Facebook Live or Zoom also. It's being hosted by Hoosier Environmental Council and Just Transition Northwest Indiana. The links to register for this, at least from what I gathered, appear to be with Just Transition Northwest Indiana's Facebook page and on their website. And if it's not there right now, it will be put up very soon. This event is happening Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. That's Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides Indra Frank, who is she's our Indiana expert on coal ash, and I can safely say that. She'll be one of the presenters at that, and we're expecting special guests, Representative Pat Boy and Senator Rodney Pohl, and I am proud to say they are my elected officials down to the Indiana State House. Pat Boy, this is her third year to introduce a coal ash bill, and this is Rodney's second year to introduce a coal ash bill, and this deals with the regulation of the disposal of coal ash, how it should be safely handled, that it should not be allowed to happen in the floodplains in Indiana. So really just want to let everybody know this is happening. This is one I would not miss to actually attend. So again, Monday, February 13th, 6 p.m. Go to Just Transition Northwest Indiana website and their Facebook page to get registered for that. They're going to do a Facebook Live and also a Zoom for that. So I have very exciting news. I hope that Katie is still here with us. Our next green drinks, we have an affirmative from Ben Dickinson, and Ben works for the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and his specialty is fish and everything about fish. So it's fishy, fishy, fishy. It's going to be a wonderful, exciting presentation. Ben talks about fish in a way that people really become engaged with the topic. He is going to be talking about the rise and fall of certain species of fish in Lake Michigan. I know when I was a kid, the lake perch, the yellow lake perch was so, what can I say, voluminous that you could eat it every day. It was sold by 3 fish markets that were located on Trail Creek. It was my favorite thing to eat. And it supported a whole fishing industry in Lake Michigan, that it supported families and the community. So he's going to tell us what happened to the yellow native perch and the introduction of sports fish into Lake Michigan, like coho salmon. So it's really lots of fun. Ben fishes with his 2 young children. So there's a lot of excitement that he has around fish and fishing. So please join us first Thursday of the month in March, 6:30 p.m. If you join us by Zoom, join us that way. If you joined us on Facebook Live, that will be available also. Okay, have we covered everything? Save the Dunes staff, Dylan, Harshini, and Katie?
I believe so.
Okay. Amanda, just, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Always delightful to run into you and have you come and present to us. And again, I just want to say you're the executive director of Sierra Club Hoosier chapter, and I no longer am allowed to say new because you've been at this for less than a year. So thank you.
Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
See you all next month.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
AJ, you're welcome.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Dylan, stay on with me for a while, please.
Sure.
Harshini, if you want to stay, that's fine.